air goes thin as the sky opens, a seam tearing straight above the blasted flats. Our beacon masts tick against one another like dry bones. I brace the pole to my chest, knuckles raw where the strap cuts. Ashes falling sideways. The men to my left keep their heads down, as if looking up might draw the lightning. I keep looking. The first of the fire seeds is small enough to swallow. A handful of minutes buckles, stretches, and then snaps back. We keep our posts, counting breaths and syllables, and while the sky rips wider. The pole is taller than I am and heavier, copper-capped and banded with sanctified wire. Its base grinds into the grit where I've tamped a hole with my boot. I mouth the litany stitched to the strap, 9 lines, then 9 more, because the words keep the tremble out of my wrists. The copper bit under my tongue taps my teeth. I am set on the northern mark, third from the wrecked crawler west of the burned shrine stump. On Sergeant Udin's glove thumped my shoulder, and that was all. Stand here, keep it still. Do not move. When the air lifts, they will see you. They watch from orbit, he said without saying anything, because we all heard the same sermon, and we know what's above the clouds. There are others. A rust smith with a split nose, 2 mining boys made gray by dust, a woman whose cloak is patched with prayer leaves. We make a ragged ring around nothing, and our nothing is their landing. I have seen pictures. A little runic chips passed prayerfully. Saints with armor like suns, faces blank and beautiful. The chips never had the smell. Out here the smell is cut cordite, oil slick, wet rust. The flats have been chewed by tracks and shells. The sky swallows its last blue and gives us a jaundiced hiss. When the voice into my ear speaks, it is just Udin, a rasp caught in the weave. Hold. I hold. The first roar is not sound so much as angle. Everything in me leans toward it, and my teeth frost. And the flame seed I saw a moment ago is a spear point now, hot bright, carving its own light. Behind it comes another, and another, an uneven scatter that makes me think of rain you can't run from. The ground lifts a little as if some giant dog is snuffling under the dirt. A boy 2 masts down vomits thin and watery onto his boots. The woman with the cloak does not change her stance. I try not to blink, because if I blink they'll come and I'll miss the first instant of it. And I was told, it as all were told, that the instant is the point. Witness, said Udin. If we are seen, we are saved, but also if we see, we are bound. I did not understand it when he said it. I understand it in my hands. Ash slants at my eyes. The copper bit tastes of green apples and blood. The roar has a texture. Wool pulled the wrong way, then leather, then someone's roar stitched to a machine's. One of the spears flares into a wound of light. For a second, I can see the lattice of heat around it, a bright net slipping and catching. Then it is a hammer. It meets the earth not where we have marked, but to my right, where the wrecked crawler has leaned half frozen in its own shadow for 3 days. Stone gives up in slabs. The shock wraps my skull. I think I bite through the bit, my tongue floods with hot salt and something metallic. I am not knocked down. Pride in that makes me straighten my elbows. The pole bucks like a living thing. But then I feel some small bones shift in my grip, and I do not let go. Men are screaming. The screaming is not fear, it is matter vibrating out of place. Shards of crawler hull pass through 2 figures to my right and nail them into the ground before they notice. Their poles flicker like reeds and then are nothing, thin rods sticking from the earth at new wrong angles. Another fire seed lands. Closer. The heat slaps me wet. The copper cap of my mast shines as if it melts, then holds. I lick the blood off my lips, and the copper is in it. I can smell fruit again, and burned hair, and the clean medicinal reek of sealed things opening. The pod near the crawler coughs its doors outward. 4 slabs explode faster than thought. one cracking a tree stump that has not been a tree for 100 years. Steam pours like breath. The inside is brilliant, lenses and struts slick with sanctum paint, and in that light the first of them moves. He is not as the chips showed, and the chips did not show weight. He folds out of his drop seed like a hand from a glove. He has eyes like pits behind glass. The ground beneath his boots powders the boot holes fill with slurry. Upon his arrival, he does not look up or down or around. He arrives as if this is the only thing that can be done. I assume like a supplicant that he will be beautiful or terrible in beauty. What he is a tool that has no hand above it. He steps in, and the leg that steps has more decision than I have had in any hour of my life. The sound of his plates sliding on themselves is rhythm, a measured grind. His gauntlet flickers, and a strip of my banner glow reflects along it like a river pebbles line. A second pod tears into being much closer, an oblique impact that makes my spine crunch. It throws me to one knee. It shears through the rust myth in a spindled waterfall. I have never heard flesh make that sound like crackling bread. And the woman with the prayer cloak does not move until heaven falls onto her, and she is simply absent. Doors bang. The first giant is halfway across the ruin of the crawler already. A second one is here at my left shoulder, a presence the size of a bell tower. His armor is a garden of scratches. There is a symbol on his breast that I know the shape of and not the meaning. He takes me with less fuss than I take a tool from my kit. A gauntlet swallows my forearm. The pressure is a wall, and something in the bracer of my mast answers to something he carries. My pole flickers in his hand, and then is holstered in a frame that appears from his thigh as if summoned. A cable like a black snake whips out and snicks into the copper bit in my torn mouth. Pain flares. The taste goes bright. My jaw clicks forward on its pins. Anchor, he says, or maybe the voice is pressed into my skull along the cable, a voice that climbs the inside of me like knotted rope. Hold. I hold. My hands are not entirely my hands. His pull magnifies them. Their quiver is smoothed to a mere dampness. The slope above us erupts with men. They come in different shapes of terror. Some with their armor slapped together from tin and rags. Some with helmets painted like grinning animals. Some with no helmets and no faces left whole. They fall as they run. Their legs no longer there, their chests wisping steam. I think for a sickening moment this is the air itself powdering them, and then the giant's weapon barks a metal syllable and flings brass. The bark repeats. The fire from his muzzle is not a fire, it is a... I do not have a word. The dead have their jaws unspooled, the live keep running into the unspooling. Through the cable, my ear picks up his breathing. Metronome, pump, ballast shifting. Also voices many, layered. A breath-thin choir giving numbers, distances, edges. I do not know if I am hearing his brothers or the machine in his chest or the idea of him talking to himself. I hear my own breath as a smaller, quicker animal. The first shock has passed. There is only work. He drags me 3 steps, me and the pole together, and locks my boot to some ridge in the churned soil with his toe. His body eclipses a good part of the world. Something slams his shoulder, a red jewel there goes dark and then reignites. He does not seem to consider this an event. He mutters a code or a prayer. The words are squares of cold stone laid on my brain. When he ceases, my panic has packed itself away like gear in a sack. Another of them thunders past, cloak snapping in the heat, his fist big as a head. I catch a face behind glass. Not a face. A stillness where a face should move. He goes the direction that the bullets haven't come from yet, as if he knows something under the soil lines. I watch until my neck scolds. I then push it back because my pole must be vertical or else. A boy ahead of me, the one who vomited, is kneeling with both hands to his ears. Screaming into his own palms, his mast lies in the churn. The giant who has me does a small, short motion with his offhand. The boy's head spins away and the screaming stops. The body folds around the absence. I want to ask why. The question slides down my throat, meets the cable, and lodges. Heat comes in gusts. Somewhere close, a promethium sprays and takes purchase. A flaring line races along a wire, up into the air, and then ends in popping applause. The flat we marked becomes a broken mouth of pods and scorch. Inside the mouth, the largest of the giants plant themselves, kneel, turn, fire. Around them, smaller men in black dust masks ripple in, shielded by the bigger bulk the way beetles use fallen logs. They have practiced this dance so often that they are bored with it, or else they are more devout than any statue I have bowed to. My left forearm throbs sullenly where his glove has made a ring deeper than bone. My hand is either numb or full of wasps. I do not have time to sort which. The cable in my mouth drags whenever he turns his head. My jaw follows as if leashed. Each tug sets my teeth chiming. He uses me to read range or risk or the way the land goes. I know it the way a cart knows the road heaves. A man with a lance of something whistling hot gets close enough to splash the giant's hip with fused rain. The smell is sweet. The giant moves the way hammers move, fast only at the moment of contact. The man collapses into 3 hinged pieces. There are words again, not for me. My tongue scalds. I still think in snatches between loads of work the cable delivers through me. I think. The chips lied, but there was no malice in the lies, only the fact that flat things cannot carry weight. I think the giants are colder than angels would be. I think wrongly for a breath he has spared me, and then remember the boy without his head. I think my pole must not slip, because if it does, he will leave me unmade, neat as clearing a table. When I was small and we moved camps, my mother taught me to push the tent pegs in with the sides of my feet to save my heels. I am doing that now inside my boots, though I am not moving. The reflex comforts me. Below the reflex, something deep is changed. It makes a noise like ice that has cracked but not yet shifted. If I look down into it, I will not do my work, so I keep my eyes on the edge where land meets furnace sky. When the first of the pods behind us detonates, it is not as we expected. I thought they had spent themselves. I was a fool of seconds. The doors that had been fired outward collapse inward, pulled by a hunger. The pod flattens itself with a howl like air sawed through pipes. Men standing too near go into that hunger as grain does into a mill. I feel my giant tense, the first tension he has shown that was not chosen. The cable sings. For a blink I see the place where he ends and I begin, and it is not at my skin. We survive it by being where we are. Those who do not die this instant become part of me because they are new absence I have to hold the line against. I set my boot harder into the earth. He fires in short, angry prayers and they answer. His shadow is the size of a house. Things happen very fast, or perhaps they slow, I cannot tell which. There is a rhythm to their killing. Each time he breathes out, someone I cannot see stops existing. Each time he breathes in, he checks his feet and the angle of my pole and the posture of the horizon. I am included in his machine dream because I am attached to him. The inclusion is colder than exclusion could possibly be. The tide of enemies falters. I know it before I see it, the way a rope knows a load has been cut. The returning fire becomes a scatter of stubborn noises. Between one shot and the next, there is enough quiet for me to notice that the ash on my knuckles has baked to a thin shell. I flex and it cracks. Beneath, I am bleeding where the strap sawed. I smell roasted grain. For the first time since the sky opened, I think. Water. And immediately, unthinkable, pointless. He pulls the cable free of my mouth without ceremony. The bite wound gapes. A thread of blood clings from the plug to my lower lip and snaps. The taste of him leaves my tongue, and with it the choir of distances collapses. I am only myself again, and I totter under the difference. He takes the mast back with a twist of his wrist and sets it into the earth so straight that the cap's light hardens to a spear. "Stay," he says, "not to me, not to anyone, but to the world." Then he goes where his brothers have already gone, through the smoke, toward the place from which all bad things have been coming as long as I can recall. Shock leaves when the work leaves. In its place, a small servant begins to lift and set down my lungs. My ears scream. My hands are useless meat. I stare at the blood on the copper bit lying against my boot. It is brighter than it has right to be. I raise my fingers and smear some along the mast's band. I don't decide to do this. My hand decides. Perhaps I am making a mark. Perhaps it is only that I want to be on the same thing as the giants in some way that does not involve being torn. Around me, there are people I knew and people I never knew in many configurations I lack words for. We had been arranged like a necklace around a throat. Now we are scattered beads in the dirt. When I breathe through my mouth, the hot air whistles through where the copper bit split my tongue. Every exhalation tastes like a coin. And I swallow and it hurts, and I swallow again because the hurt is better than floating. Things ease. They do not end. The ash wind returns, modest and uninterested, lofting strings of soot that catch on exposed ribs and wire. Farther off, something collapses lengthwise with a groan full of road names. A building, maybe, that had lived too long. I feel its old death in my feet. The giants continue their work forward of us. I glimpse one now and then, not mine, but his kin. I'm taking the corner of a ruined wall with a casual neatness that makes the wall cease to be a corner. The men in dust masks move through the gaps and plant little emitters that click and show green eyes. Prayers float up out of them in thin recordings, crowding the sky between bursts of ordnance. I lean into the mast because the need to lean into something has taken me whole. Something quick and wrong skates the edge of the flats. A thing with too many shoulder joints, when carrying a saw that has never been used for wood. It scuttles like a crab, keeping its belly hidden. A narrow burst from somewhere invisible lifts it off its legs in a shower of segments. It has a face, but perhaps that was an accident. A small boy tugs at the hem of my coat. He wears a cap with a stitched badge half burned away. His face is rimed white with ash that has turned paste at the corners of his mouth. "Can we go now?" he asks, too loud because we are all now too quiet in our heads. "Hold," I say, because it is what I was made to say. It sounds unfamiliar in my raw mouth. He looks disappointed, not frightened. He sits down with the simple labor of a tired animal and begins to dig at the dirt with 2 fingers. I admire the clarity of his purpose and lean harder into the mast so that it will not see my legs shake. I do not know how long passes. Time has been pulled thin and pegged at the wrong places. It is still stupidly hot, the ash still stings my eyes, and the sky above has sealed its seam and become a lid. The giants' weapons talk less, but when they speak, they still barter whole lives for punctuation. A company of our own, men in cracked ceramite that looks like bad sculpture, trotting with discipline that pretends everything is normal, comes to relieve us. They slow when they see the flats close hand. The sergeant with whiskers rimed with his own sweat looks up at the mast by my shoulder and seems to check a measure against something he has in his head. "Good," he says without admiration or malice. He points 2 of his men to pick the poles upright along the line. He does not look at me, which feels like mercy. When the last cough of gunfire ebbs and goes, the air takes on a hiss. It is not quiet so much as the steady sift of ruined things thinking about being dust. From across the flats, the giants come back, 3 of them stepping with that same purpose that seems to let the world settle where they choose to put their feet. My hands twitch on the mast. The one who had held me pauses as if to listen to something beyond hearing. He tips his head. His helm turns slightly my way. Perhaps he remembers the angle of my jaw under the cable. Perhaps the mask cannot remember anything, and this is a coincidence of lines. He lays his palm on the top of the mast, directly over where my blood set earlier. His plate is warm even through the ash. There is a whisper, metal's own breath, as my mark flakes under his hand. Then he turns, as done with me as with any other part. They move to the next place they must be. 2 of them lift one of the spent pods as if it were a barrel and slide it from their path. The thing that had screamed when it went inward is quiet now, a cooled iron flower. A servitor on mag legs trundles toward it with an oil can and a brush, and its face looks at nothing. I am not dismissed. No one speaks to me again. The flats smell of rain-done brick when there hasn't been rain for years. The boy at my coat hem has crawled into the hollow made by a pod scorch and is asleep with his thumb in his mouth. When I inhale, little rings of pain jump across my tongue like fish. I close my teeth as if they could be a gate. Later, that word means nothing, I use it anyway. The sergeant with the sweat whiskers strolls along our errand line and taps shoulders. "Take it down," he says, "carry it back. Keep them lit until you reach the trench mouth." He does not say, "You did well." He does not say, "You lived." I wait for someone to touch me. No one does. I do not move. The mast's light makes me into a part of the ground. Men skirt me with respectful disinterest the way they would a mine still warm. The giants are only sounds now, a far thudding the earth appreciates. The ash wind carries the smell of them away, oil not of our make, surfacing again and again from the hinges of something older. I think, unbidden and without shape, of the instant when my jaw was not mine, and the world stepped through that mouth and spoke itself. The thought has teeth, it takes a small bite and dissolves. When they go, and they do not go up, they go along. They reduce their numbers in the distance until they are measures, and then until they are not. Only then do my knees unlock. They do not betray me, they bend with relief like obedient hinges. I let the mast lean and then lower it, angling it carefully so the cap never touches the dirt. I lay it in the groove made by its own weight when it held me upright, and the groove is fresh and dark and still hot. I have to clamp my teeth to stop from making a noise when I pull the copper bit out of my mouth. The plug's teeth object, skin tears. The taste of metal and me together goes stale. My spit is red. I fold the strap around my hand 3 times tight, and I feel where the gauntlet ringed me, an ache as precise as a circle drawn with compass and fine knife. The ash starts up again. It and the flakes that catch on the mast's band are the color of rye burnt to black. Far off, something clangs once, a lid set onto a pot. The boy in the scorch trough turns on his side and mutters. I set the mast flat and touch my tongue with the back of my wrist. It comes away shining. I decide that this is clean enough. I do not look toward where the giants went. I look down at my boot, at the notch the giant made with his toe to show me where to put it. The mark is almost a hoof print, and I put my boot next to it. My heel sinks slightly into the heat-soft earth. The ash takes a print and holds it until a small wind loosens it and it sloughs into nothing, gray on gray.